Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Welcome to episode 149 of a Life in Ruins podcast, where we investigate the careers and lives and research, the careers and research of those living a life in ruins. I'm your host, Carlton and David, and I'm joined by my co-host, David Howe. Connor is not David. Connor's not here tonight. He is currently cosplaying as the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh my God.
So
the dude slipped a disc.
I think the Hunchback slipped a couple discs. So it doesn't have. I ordered one of those, by the way. Finally,
a Hunchback?
No, not the Hunchback. The thing in your hand. What is it called?
Oh, a fume?
Yeah, I ordered one.
I just have an oral fixation of putting a lot of things in my mouth, so this is what I like to use it for.
Same girl.
You guys should go to www.fume.com/ruins and get yourself 20% off of this fume stick thing.
Where do you re-up pods for those things or the filters?
Probably www.fume.com/ruins.
Excellent.
It literally is just flavored air is all this thing is. I've never jeweled or nicotine vaped in my life, but I like breathing in cranberry flavored air, I guess.
Is there any vapor that comes out?
No, it's straight up like you're just inhaling a mint through an $80 tube. Yeah. It's $60 tube if you go to life.com/life-in-ruins.
I did use that promo, and I did order the Journey Pack, which came with the one device and a month's worth of flavored air cartridges.
This sounds about right.
So looking forward to it. But today
we've gotten distracted.
We've gotten way off topic per usual. But today on this episode of episode 149 of a Life in Ruins podcast, apologies, me and David wanted to dive into the very riveting, exciting, and cutting edge topic of style versus function.
Yes, we do.
Why is this concept, this classification of is it even considered a classification? It's basically just about the form of objects. Yeah. And then
style versus function is like the idea that if you dig up an artifact, you can look at it, and if it's, say, a biface or a projectile point or a knife, okay, this is a cutting implement. That's its function. But the style is a Clovis point versus an archaic tri-notch point. Is there a different function between those two things, or is it just style? And you can look at that through today. And it's is an iPhone, the function is to call and use the web, and it's a million different things. But 1,000 years from now, when someone digs it up, they're going to be like, I think these smaller ones were probably more efficient for carrying than the bigger ones or something. It's just how do we look at this archaeologically? And you can apply it to any modern tool that you could dig up.
Absolutely. The dichotomy between style and function was first formulated in the late 1970s by Robert Dunnell and remains an axiomatic within the theoretical perspective of evolutionary archaeology. The original definitions of style and function were grounded in biological evolutionary concepts regarding neutral variation versus variation that is subject to natural selection. Basically, what the deal is here is when we're looking at the archaeological record, especially when it comes to a material culture that is in deep time and trying to categorize, identify the use of objects, it gets a little wonky because, of course, the people from that time can't speak for themselves. And generally, depending on how far back in time you're going, how useful the ethnographic record can be in interpreting these objects gets really difficult. So especially when it comes to, I think to me, when I think of style versus function, David, like flutes on a Paleo-Indian point.
Yes.
come to mind because after what is it, like Folsom points, projectile points aren't fluted anymore. It just kind of goes away.
Folsom is like one of the later ones. Yeah, there might be one or two others, but Folsom would be the bigger one. Clovis, Folsom, Cumberland.
And for those that are listening who have no idea what a flute is, like if you imagine a projectile point or an arrowhead, spear point, whatever.
Imagine a racing stripe up the middle.
That's an excellent description. I was really struggling. Yeah, like a little notch of a,
sometimes
like carving out a little.
Sometimes I nap, flint nap.
Yep, I know.
Your face is okay. All right, moving on.
Up the center, and it just largely disappears. Now I have heard, and I can't tell who I heard this by, that like the process of fluting a point, which happens at the end of production of a projectile point, if done incorrectly, will snap a point, and all the time you just put into creating that point is now wasted except for practice.
40% fail rate, I believe.
Really? That's pretty high.
I think it might be lower. That might be among modern nappers. I don't know what it is in the past.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's either 40 or 30%. It's pretty high.
Have you ever fluted a point before?
Yes. Only one successfully. The other 6 have broken in half.
So you have like a 15% success rate.
Yes, it's a pretty low success rate.
I've never got to the point in a projectile production to even be close to somewhere where I can flute. So I mean, good for you, dude.
It's taken.
Were they like Clovis points or Folsoms?
I attempted to make a Clovis point. It more looked like a Colby, and I just tried to flute it.
Isn't just a Colby point of Clovis point that's undergone the Frisson effect?
They're just bigger Clovis points to me. But yes,
I thought they were smaller.
The Frisson effect. The one I made was bigger.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
sounds good.
to my understanding. Anyway, we're losing track here. Yes, so the point of the fluting would be like some people think it so you can haft it better. I think that's the major idea. I would subscribe to that. It's like thinner to put on the shaft, but other people think it might be like a rite of passage. Like, oh, can you flint up this? Cool, you can join our club. Other people think it might do with bloodletting, like a katana. Yeah, like katanas have blood grooves down the side of them, so that when you stab them into somebody, the suction doesn't go all around it. Like the blood automatically comes out, so it like stops the wound from healing. So I thought flutes were doing that, but that part of the point is usually hafted and tied, so it just makes no sense.
I have seen, I think it was Donnie and Devin talk about putting grooves into Atlatl.
I forgot he listens. He's currently screaming at me because I incorrectly sized a Colby point.
Gotta love Donnie Dust.
Love the man.
But it was either Devin or Donnie or both of them were talking about putting grooves into the side of Atlatl darts. Mm-hmm. I forget what the purpose of those were, but I don't want to talk out of hand. But I believe
down the side.
Yeah, on both sides. Imagine
it's for that purpose, then. Yeah,
but they didn't say bloodletting. I think it was to make it like more flexible, wiggly in the air. Yeah, I don't see style or function.
Text him. Ask him.
I'm afraid to text either of them at this point.
Let's just call him and put him on air and ask him. No, I'm not going to bother that. All right, he's probably busy filming something.
Yeah, busy man. But like when it comes to style and function, especially when you look at ceramics in particular, like ceramic designs, those are like pretty much over 90% of the time going to be all about style.
Yeah, and like we could also get into the idea too that like different cord stamped versus like paddle stamped versus like circular designs on it can get into like a spiritual or a religious different function in that regard, but that's other stuff that doesn't fossilize that we can tell either.
Yeah, there's a really good argument that Ramsian sized pottery, which is a particular sort of Oniota pottery production on the shoulders of pots, is indicative of raptor wings. It's a thing.
Hashtag Adam Driver.
Yes, raptor wings. Do the Raptors have wings in 10 million? What is the movie called?
No, 65 was the name of the movie. And no, among the many issues of the movie, none of them that I have to pick currently were about the dinosaurs. It was just the plot and the writing. The weirdest part of the movie was after years, like almost 2 decades of Jurassic Park, 3 decades of Jurassic Park being out, when everyone's like, late Cretaceous era dinosaurs had feathers. There wasn't one feather to be seen in this late Cretaceous movie. And they had 30 years to figure that out. But no, they were like very just like chicken skin looking lizards.
Okay. Was it better than the last Jurassic Park? Jurassic World
Functionally,
Evolution?
No. Stylistically, no.
Really?
I actually haven't seen the newest Jurassic Parks because they looked like ass.
It was bad. It wasn't good. 0 out of 10 would not recommend.
You're gonna do my man BD Wong as a bad guy? Get out of here.
And so why does this matter in the archaeological record? It mostly boils down to trying to understand human behavior and also like classification of like, well, what's the purpose of this human decision in the production of a material culture? And then archaeologists will argue about it for a decade, sometimes vehemently.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember tunnel vision being brought up in class.
Tunnel vision. I like that. Tunnel
vision. It's like if you're too bogged down in this, I think it's tunnel vision. That might not be a kind thing to say to somebody that they have tunnel vision. And I'm saying this out loud, but I'd like you to elaborate. Who knows? Elaborate on the idea of the evolutionary archaeology of this. Like, is that the style evolves? Is that what it's trying to get at? I believe almost 8 years ago for me now.
Yeah, I believe so. It's been a while. I haven't got into style versus function in a hot minute just because like most of my research has been so based on radiocarbon and then also like settlement patterns. But actually that's a pretty good segue in terms of like with my work, how I see style versus function comes in house forms and settlement patterns. Like the style of house, particularly on the Great Plains, like in Earth Lodge, which is basically a man-made hobbit hole, I think is the best way I can describe it. Like you got a spherical mound of dirt. Inside is massive log beams, and there is a elongated entryway. And you find these in the Great Plains, particularly Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, northern Oklahoma. And it's like the indicative Pawnee, Arikara, Wichita, Ponca, Omaha, Mandan, Hidatsa form of house. And that people that come later, like the Poncas, Otos, and Omahas, adopt earth lodges as they move into the plains from like the Pawnee and Arikara teach them. Turns out they're like tornado proof, which is a pretty good form of house to have in Tornado Alley. Yeah, like the spherical shapes of the houses, like nothing's getting in there.
I also always wondered like why like teepees and things like that out in the plains are like the shape they are, and I imagine it has to do with the wind. Like once they moved out there.
So like people think teepees are perfectly conical. They're not. Actually, like, and same thing with earth lodges. The entranceways to a lot of these houses, there is a religious component to it, why they point the certain way they do. However, generally they're looking to the south, the entranceways to the southeast or to the east in general. The reason being is like, where does the cold wind come in from generally? The Northwest. So Canada. Yeah. So you don't want your house to open up into the frigid Arctic air. And teepees actually lean towards the Northwest generally. Like teepees have a slight bend in them. So the front poles actually are putting pressure onto the back poles. So as the wind's coming down, it's actually pushing into those poles that are at much more of a acute angle as opposed to the obtuse angles of the back poles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. But the little, I think it's a reservoir that's in Centennial, Wyoming, a little town outside Laramie. Like there's a weird like conical shaped structure. It looked like just a man-made like a cement-made teepee. Mm-hmm. But when I first saw that, I was like, why is it shaped like that? Oh, the wind. And like it hit like, because I thought it was just easy to move poles and skins like as a house somewhere. But yeah, it's got to be the wind. Otherwise, they would make way different houses, I would think.
Yeah. And traditionally, like Pawnees and Arikaras, like all the tribes that did the biannual bison hunting, you'd have the one in the winter, you'd bring your teepees out. But one in the summer, Pawnees and Arikaras had a summer house. So we wouldn't bring the teepees out. It was, there's really cool photos of it, but it's like more of it's not even fully enclosed. It basically kind of looks like an ovular lean-to because you don't need to worry about the wind really in the summertime. You just need to worry about the rain. So it's not even fully enclosed, but it looks like when baby Yoda Grogu's little fucking pods open That's what they kind of look like.
Oh, cool.
If that makes any sense. And I don't even know.
Yeah, like a cave kind of.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And there's just, and like, you don't need in terms of like function, a teepee is a shitload of bison hides as compared to those summer tents, much less. Right. So it was really only the horse nomads that show up in the 18th century along the Western plains. They're the full-time teepee people, right? Because they just need the one all year round.
You can open that up and let it be breezy and stuff too.
Right. Whereas like for the farmers on the Missouri River, the summer bison hunt, that's where you're really getting the most meat. So you can reduce your carrying capacity, like the initial carrying capacity of the teepees with just these like summer lodges, which are an eighth of the size and weight of a teepee. And you can go out, get more meat and bring it back to the town.
Okay, well, that was an excellent example of style versus function. In the next segment, I'd like to get into some more, and I promise you guys this will be some fun stuff to think about.
Back to school savings are officially in session at Tanger Outlets. Shop the latest school styles with an extra 25% off during Tanger Style, our biggest sale of the season, now through August 25th. Plan your trip at tanger.com.
And welcome back to episode 149 of the Life Roots podcast. I am here with David, and we were talking about style versus function archaeology. So we're going to do a lightning round of sorts. I'm going to name David an object that can be in the archaeological record or in contemporary society, and he's going to elaborate whether it's style versus function.
Go to perchance.org, and you can type in a randomizer for a random object. We can do this.
Perchance.org. Okay. I like that.
I just found it. It might be a white supremacy website, but not yet.
Xbox 360 controller.
Okay. Video game controllers are a perfect example of this because I loved the GameCube controller. It was ergonomic. It was perfectly made for playing Super Smash Brothers, for playing any kind of Zelda game, because you could map the buttons to do what you wanted to do. However, people complained that it hurt your hands after a while, but also it only had one analog stick. It didn't have two. You had the camera stick on the right. So Xbox and PlayStation were like, hold on, move over. Let's make two analog sticks. And like people moved on to that because you had a lot more first-person shooter games that have people needing their left thumb and their right thumb to be doing the steering and the walking and things. Nintendo games didn't do that at the time, so that was the perfect game for their controller for that. But all that being said, even with a modern Xbox 360 controller or a PlayStation, what are they on? PlayStation 5 now? 6?
Yeah, 5.
I don't play those. Like, you have controllers that look different. Like, you could look at an Xbox controller and a PlayStation controller and be like, okay, these have a video game function. Like, I know what these are. But, like, 4,000 years from now, when someone digs that up, what are they going to think the differences were between a PlayStation and an Xbox controller? Like, they're not going to understand that there were different corporations that made them. They might think there were different factions of people. And again, I'm talking about this in the sense of, like, looking at it archaeologically, because for the same reason, I could pick up a Clovis point made in Tennessee that's a little bit smaller and a Clovis point that's made in Wyoming and say these are two different people that made these. But really, it could be the same person or same group of people, just somebody made one that was smaller and like they had less rock to work with. So it's like, how do we look at this? And like, would a PlayStation controller have more worth? Would it be worth, or does it cost more money than an Xbox controller? I don't know. This is the style versus function. That's pretty cool.
And I think looking at the history of console controllers, I think we have nailed down the function, because we've gone through like so many different iterations. Like you look at Nintendo 64 versus a GameCube. Like that was a radical change to make it easier to play a game. And then the next step, and they basically just like kind of copied what the other two game systems were doing. Although like, I'm more fond of the Xbox controller than the PlayStation. Like I like having my movement stick top left rather than bottom left. I think for me, I think it's easier to hit that D-pad.
I haven't had a PlayStation since high school, so yeah, I prefer Xbox controllers, and they work better with PC games too.
Yeah,
and the Nintendo Switch is two analog sticks, but their Pro controller is very similar to an Xbox controller. I would say more so than a PlayStation.
So I think at this point we're just at style. Like the function's been nailed down.
You only have so many fingers for a normal.
Only so many fingers. Like we've hit that pinnacle of design. Although like I do have like a pro controller for Xbox where it has buttons and toggles at the bottom. So
My friend does that.
Yeah, I love that. But I only get super serious. Things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that way I don't have to move my right thumb on my view stick.
Mm-hmm.
I can just use the fingers down below, my middle and ring finger down below. Yep.
And that's style versus function. Because, I mean, it is function in a way. But yeah, I could go on a whole thing about video game consoles too, how they look and things like that. You could also use video game consoles as a marker for stratigraphy because they look so different.
Same with phones. Like those are always
really
like my favorite, like trying to explain an archaeological concept to students. It's like, you all know the differences in fucking phone technology at this point.
Right.
And I think I'm going to use game controllers next time, but I think phones are more encompassing to a broader audience.
Phone, yeah, for sure. Because not everyone played a Wii or a Nintendo.
But we're at the point now with iPhones, like there's such fucking difference. There's little difference. Firmware wise.
Firmware? Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was going to say CD. What can you tell me about CDs? Yeah.
Definitely, I think function at that point.
Yeah.
Because there was like laser discs that were like massive.
Yeah, those are huge.
And at that point, I think they were able to put more data onto a smaller disc that was more convenient to lug around than having, basically the equivalent of a record.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you could put
like the labels on them are vastly different. Do those have a function? How would we look
absolutely.
At that?
Style. Yeah, definitely style. 100%. I miss the days of like being on the bus and everyone had those like packages of CD cases,
leather CD cases. Yeah.
And then everybody was just like on the bus, like trading CDs to listen to, and everyone like scrambling when you got to school.
Now that's
got
what
home,
I call
like,
Music 6. And you're like, oh, hell yeah.
Kids Bop 5, like the OG. They're like Kids Bop 50 something now. And it was just like, I remember when Kids Bop was radical. Like, do you want to listen to hot songs that don't have cuss words? Here's Kids Bop.
Was it just kids singing it? I never had one.
Yeah. I never bought one either, but I fondly remember the commercials on Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon.
Same. So how would someone look at the different, say, an NSYNC CD versus a Backstreet Boys CD?
Oh, that's excellent. I still have CDs from that time, and I used to absolutely love NSYNC back in the day.
Right.
Loved it. I still have my, is it No Strings Attached CD?
I believe that's what it was called.
It had Bye 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 on it. Yeah. I kind of want to listen to that now. Fuck, I want to get that on Spotify. Do they have NSYNC? And then, of course, Justin Timberlake went on and it's crushing it. But I don't know. I mean, it was kind of the boy band, like, copy and paste idea, right? During that time. Like, everyone was doing it. Like, everyone, like, there's that structure. And I think Fifth Harmony, which broke up a couple of years ago, was that same deal. Is like you get a group of people together that all contribute. Like, K-pop is very big in this. Like, there's always the bad boy, the nerd. Like, they carbon copies. I don't know if like an archaeologist was to see an album cover. It's just style. There's no function.
Yeah. Just how would we determine that? I guess after the CDs being the exact same size and shape, and then it'd be like pottery stamps, like there's different stampings on them. That would make the most sense. Mm-hmm. I don't know what a bagel bracelet is. Bangle bracelet, coffee mug, a ceramic. Yeah. And there'd be, there's so much style to that too. Just like a pottery. Okay. That's literally a ceramic. I'll move to the next thing.
But yeah, but what makes a coffee mug different than other mugs is that it's meant to not burn your hands when you hold it. It is specifically produced for containing very hot objects. So I would say function supersedes style on that. I mean, nowadays they all have fun shit on them and logos, but
yeah, I love Mondays. I hate Mondays, whatever the classic mug says.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Sir, this is a Wendy's. Well, one. Have you seen that Demi Lovato interview where they ask her what her favorite dish is?
What does she say?
It's like it's like a viral Vine, I think. They're like, "What's your favorite dish?" She's like, I would say mugs. She's like, because you can hold hot beverage. They were asking like pad thai versus
that's funny.
Yeah,
describe your
like,
favorite
mugs.
date, like May 28th or whatever. Yeah, that's funny as shit. Good for her.
But I bring that up because she mentions like, it's they don't burn your hand on them. There's a little handle. Sometimes the handles are more ergonomic than others. But again, all humans have the same 5 fingers. So like, I mean, no, I shouldn't say that. Not all humans do.
That's the base template is 5 fingers. That's the vanilla model.
Yeah, it's the version 1.0. Like there's only so many ways you can hold a mug, and it has to shield your hands from being burned by the cut. So it's a different type of thing. A puddle? That's not an object. Cookie jar. These are all Masonic.
I got one.
Ceramic.
Flashlight.
Yeah, that's another one too. They all have at the end of it the eye where the light comes out of, for sure. But there's many ways to get there. Some of them are like S-shaped, some of them are L-shaped. Some don't laugh. Some of them are like, you got the police ones that like you can,
also bashing someone's head with
hit people with. Yeah. And then, but there's also tiny little ones like that you get at the supermarket, the Energizer ones that are in your hand. Is there any part of the world with less light than others? Yes, Alaska. But like at the end of the day, like you're all seeing the same, like 5 feet in front of you with a flashlight. Also style versus function.
I think function is probably with flashlight probably the most critical, because like even the descriptions of flashlights that you were just telling us about, like they all serve a different purpose. It's not necessarily for style. Like the small ones that you buy at the store, it's like something for your car versus the police one, which those are like heavy duty searchlights. Like I think how they're built is indicative of their purpose.
That's true.
Now there's like the children's one that have like Scooby-Doo and shit on the side of them. That's probably more style.
Yeah.
I remember having like one of the kids ones that you could rotate the lens or something. Like, you know what I'm talking about? I think it was yellow. Like it was a yellow flashlight. It was this fucking looked like a boom box. And then it had like a red filter and then a blue filter. Like it was just this film. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, it was like a toy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe I don't know.
Fucking core memory unlocked.
It's funny you mentioned Scooby-Doo though, because in the class where we talked about this, it was Band-Aids. And like, do Flintstones or Rugrats or Scooby-Doo Band-Aid brand bandages have more healing power function versus others? And like, obviously medically, no. But if a child would be more likely to keep the Scooby-Doo one on because it doesn't, it's cool looking, it's going to heal better. So like it's other things like this we got to think about too with ceramics and projectile points. Like, yeah, that one's dinky and shitty, but like maybe a person thought it had good karma on it for like hunting or something, it's like, and
it's like
all
a dean point.
A dean point, yeah. You gotta
that's a callback to like 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years ago? We talked about that recently. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, Dean first came out a long time ago.
I need to make an AI generated Ralph Wiggum as a caveman. Name it Dean. That's our new logo.
Those berries taste like burning.
Grandma tells me to burn things. It was a leprechaun tells me to burn things. I hang out with grandma. That was the thing. But yes, so you got to think about that stuff when you're categorizing artifacts, because like it's stuff we're never gonna know. Like what the function is, or like why the Scooby-Doo Band-Aid would be more prized to children than the other ones. Obviously, it has a cute character on the front of it, but it's stuff like that we can't figure out. But at the same time, processual archaeology is just like, okay, these ones are decorated, these ones aren't. We'll deal with that later. Separate them to decorated versus undecorated, which is what I did at Curation for 4 years. And like, you could figure out the stuff later. I don't know. It's endless stuff you can think about with this topic.
Yeah. I think when I think of like Band-Aids, different types, what easily comes to mind, part of this debate, are like Valentine's Day cards. Did you used to do those in elementary school? Like Valentine's Day, everyone would give you like run around the classroom and put Valentines in each other's bags?
Girls didn't like me, dude. I wasn't that kind of kid. What?
But did that experience occur? Like, was that activity allowed regardless if you received Valentines or not?
I don't think I ever received a Valentine from like a real one, but we did like the class, like fill out heart cards and cut them out. Yeah.
But
did we give it to people?
Yeah. Because I remember like trying to get like the coolest Valentines. Like it was always like kind of like who had the best Valentines. And if you had one if you and someone else had the same Valentines, that was kind of lame.
The same Valentines? Like
the same type. Like if I got Batman Valentines and you got the same brand. Like
the stationery.
Yeah, the stationery of the Valentines.
Gotcha. I thought you meant just like a Valentine's present.
No. I mean like purely style. Very little function other than capitalism.
Yeah, that's true.
How about a ring? Like jewelry, style or function?
How many rings? 3 rings? 7 rings?
This says 1 ring.
9 rings?
A ring.
Said 1 ring? A
One
ring. Okay.
to rule them all.
I mean, if it's Middle Earth, they definitely have functions. But if it's
careful now, we don't want to upset Archaeology. We don't want to overstep boundaries.
He's the man, dude. He's a good kid. He's probably
Never
my
felt
age.
so insulted on Discord before.
It's okay, Doc. Rings. Yeah. So I still struggle finding which hand, and this is once you guys, anyone listening who's younger than 18, once you get to 22, when everyone starts getting married around you, you really have to learn, like, okay, who has a ring on their finger and who doesn't. It's something you start looking at. And or maybe that was just me, but I also still to this day can never remember what hand it is. And then I'm dyslexic. So when I look at somebody, I'm like, that's definitely their left hand. But then I like have to raise my left hand to be like, well, that's my left. So that's their right. And then the conversation has left at this point. Point being, rings signify that you're married or engaged or not. But you change the engagement finger and like it's all the culture with that. And I'm like, are they married or not? I don't know.
I think there's a lot. I think like, yes, wedding rings are function. Other rings, like the one that I have on my hand, I think it's a little bit of style, but also like there's a very, like I wear turquoise and I think there's a function to that. Well, it's a very like Southwest oriented style of jewelry that's often associated with indigenous folks or like
Mayas.
Pretend cowboys.
Huh. It's a style.
Yeah. I see it also as like a function of identity display, I guess.
And your identity as a single person versus a married person.
No, for like, well, the turquoise Southwestern ring is like as indigenous. And then I wear a lot of turquoise generally. But yeah, with the wedding ring, that's like a function of I'm taken. Yeah.
You had a frat ring one time too, didn't you? No?
I've always had turquoise.
Sweatshirt. That was it. That's right.
Yeah, my frat sweatshirt.
Somebody I know wears a ring, class ring or something. I never got a class ring in high school, but
no.
I don't think
I like my fraternity, but not like that much.
Fair enough.
Like that's like if I want to rep letters, I'll rep letters. Or like most of my frat t-shirts now are just sleepwear. That's their function. They used to be identity display back on campus. Now they're just purely for this is an extra t-shirt.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, I guess with ring and then especially turquoise too, like we would see, turquoise jewelry very much concentrates to the Southwest. Is there turquoise mines there to make those gems? I'm actually not sure entirely, but there's a culture there that obviously in that area use them, just like Cumberland points were here in Tennessee. But rings too, like if you dig up an old ring from, let's say a piece of shell that was tied to an organic ring somebody made in Pleistocene Europe, like you're going to pull that up. You have no idea what the marriage ceremonies were, whether that meant like married or single, or that meant like war captive. You don't know like what that ring meant.
Right.
So it's like, you got to ask yourself all these things, but like, it's just funny to me as one archaeologist, we'll put it away as ring. And like, people might think that's super reductionist, but it has to be, because how else are you going to classify it? I can't say if this is a marriage ring versus a Navajo shaman's ring.
When did wedding rings become a thing? I'm going to look it up now.
That's one of those things that I feel like when you look it up, you're going to be bummed. Like most things about marriage or women in the past in general. Your eyes are lighting up. I'm scared.
They date back as far as the Roman era, but did not come into common use until the 1700s, and then only among the upper class.
Well, that makes sense.
Diamond engagement rings first spiked in popularity during the mid-18th century after Brazil emerged as a major diamond source, making them more readily available. Yeah. But World War II is a big turning point for engagement rings, but also wedding bands.
Because all the soldiers stole them from Europe and castles?
World War II is also responsible for establishing the tradition of men's wedding bands. So basically it's as a reminder of their wives back home.
Gotcha.
I don't know. Wedding rings stress me the fuck out.
They do. Next segment.
Yeah.
Chicken tacos should only be trusted to chicken professionals.
That's where we come in. Introducing Zaxby's new chicken finger tacos. One comes with pico de gallo and creamy chipotle ranch. And the other comes with bacon, lettuce, tomato, and avocado ranch. Chicken experts since 1990. Chicken taco experts since now. Order yours today in the Zax Rewards app. Woo, saucy! Zaxby's.
And we're back to episode 149 of the Life Ruins podcast. We're still talking about style versus function. I really have this song stuck in my head, and I need to play it for you all because like a student shared this song with me, and it is forever scarring my brain. David, let me know if you've heard this before.
accept me being just the way they are. Tell me, little pony, can you push a cart or drive a car? Lyre is my instrument, but humans strum their sweet guitar. It's a mystery. Anthropology, fingers, toes, and tiny noses, brownish hair and tannish skin. Would it be too much to ask to see the world they're living in? Every pony tells me that it's old and fake mythology. It's a mystery. Anthropology.
I hate it. Anyways,
I do
stuck
too.
in my head.
Please turn it off.
That's not even the pinnacle. It just keeps going. It just keeps going up.
Oh wow.
Which is
I had a good object here on the randomizer, but I forgot what it was. Wrench came to mind, but we already know what wrench is.
Function.
House, rope, ice pick, pair of water goggles, dolphin, not an object, acorn, tree, bottle, rabbit, child, handheld game system, fishing.
Panda.
Child is not an object.
The things I got dolphin, I got umbrella. Umbrella's function. I mean, that's the hard part. Like a lot of these tools in general, they have a function.
Well, that's the thing. So do bifaces, but what's the function? Like, was it going to be a point? Was it going to be a knife? I don't know.
Well, there's also blanks. Like, yeah. But what's the difference between, I don't know, like differences between objects always kind of boil down to style, I guess. Like that's the whole point. Xbox, GameCube, or Xbox, Nintendo Pro, and PlayStation controllers, that's all style, but they serve the same function.
Well, I guess you could say a Pro controller, because the Switch control, like the Joy-Cons are perfectly made so that you can play it handheld and like they could play the games with them. Yeah. But like some people prefer the function of a Pro controller to the style of it, I guess. Because I think the style of the Joy-Cons looks cool. Just, can I game with them? Not really. I don't know. What do your students say about this stuff?
Well, I'm actually doing a demo tomorrow. So recording this the 19th, and tomorrow I'm doing actually like a whole workshop for this religious studies thing. And like the whole purpose, like I'm actually bringing in like most of my dishware and I'm going to have them categorize these objects based on form. And at the end, it's going to be, I'll basically show them how I, as a person, the EMIC perspective actually would categorize the glassware. Like some of them I use for decoration, you know, even though they might be a beer mug, but like the big ones that I have, it's like my fraternity glassware. I keep that on a shelf. I don't actually use that type of stuff.
What does EMIC mean again?
There's the EMIC and EDIC perspective. And EMIC, the way that I think about it, like EMIC, the M in it means me. And the EDIC in Spanish, there's the to form, which means you. And that's how I remember it. So the EMIC perspective is my personal inherent experience, whereas the EDIC experience is someone else's perspective or worldview. And it's like in culture. So like EMIC's like my culture, EDIC is someone else's culture.
Sure.
So trying to challenge them in that way.
Fishing hook. That one, like, obviously has its own.
I think that's like 100% function.
Yeah.
There's very little style. Like people don't get like, oh, that's a pretty fishing hook. It's like, no, you need to catch a fish.
Like you can have a different metal, I guess, but that still goes into function. But yeah, you're right. That is something that's like pretty unanimously like it's fish hook because it physically does exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So that's something in the record too. I wonder how much stuff we could identify as a straight up fish hook, but fish hooks are usually organic back then.
They're pretty like the concept of a fish hook has been around for a long time. Like that's how you catch fish. Like there's fish hooks that go back to like Neanderthals, I believe, in Spain / Portugal.
They're pretty industrious over there.
Yeah. I mean, people have been there for a long time. I would really wish there's more archaeological work being done in Africa.
I mean, yeah, it'd be great.
So many questions would be answered. But like what the mid part, like the more equatorial Africa you get, like the more jungle, harder it is to excavate with that highly acidic soil, which affects artifact preservation. Yeah. I'd love to work in Africa at some point.
I was wondering where you were going with this versus style and function. I was like, Africa?
I don't know. I don't know. But that's like the basic, like the further back you go in time, like when we talk about Australopithecines, Homo erectus, that's function. There is very little in the way of style, I believe. Like that's
like using hand axes and stuff.
Like this is function.
Yeah.
Like a lot of our earliest components I think that's true of any industry in human material culture. Like the first iterations are purely function. Style comes later.
Yeah.
Especially under capitalist markets. I think like now we're in the pinnacle of style of our modern human culture.
Yeah. Well, I guess with iPhones too, like the software and what they're capable of doing can always change in function.
Yeah, because like now iPhones all look the fucking same.
Yeah, like I didn't even realize there was 14s now. My phone looks exactly like the new ones, but it's not new at all.
Yeah, human culture is pretty fun that way. Although a good one that's actually kind of fun. You've seen The Dictator, right?
The pointy. It must point.
Yes.
You see Elon Musk talking about that?
That's exactly where I was going for it. He ordered them to create that rocket because of that fucking movie. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, some guy probably spent like years, like his whole thesis in graduate school in engineering about how to like make the perfect nozzle for a rocket. And Elon Musk was like, no, I would like it to be pointy.
I think he did talk like that is slightly less inefficient, but like negligibly, like extraordinarily negligibly less efficient. It does nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's purely, style.
Because the Dictator was saying he likes it because in Looney Tunes, when the rocket hits something, it sticks and goes, ding.
He's like, I saw a documentary. It's like, did this documentary have a duck? When it blows up, his bill goes behind his head?
It was Rafi, yeah. Yeah.
I am certain you are watching cartoons. God, I love Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah, he's a gem. Carlton, does any of this matter?
I don't know, dude. At the end of the day, if
made up and the points don't matter.
If it's not if it's not really helping us understand human behavior, who gives a shit? Like, people get really upset over these things, and it's like, okay, a fishing hook's a fishing hook. This is a projectile point. Does the minutia over? Because like it's impossible for us to go back in time and like, is this personal preference, or have they identified something with this unique way to notch or flute a projectile point that's going to make this more efficient? Because at the end of the day, these material cultures continue to change unless they're fish hooks. That is clearly, we've reached the pinnacle of that.
Yeah.
But like, does it really matter? Like when it comes to projectile points, especially in the Paleo-Indian Archaic record, there's very little that we can tell in terms of differences between populations. And that's why we consider them like cultures, even though it's like, are they really cultures? We don't really know. But at least with Clovis and Folsom, it's not until really the Archaic, right, where there are geographic boundaries of projectile point types.
Till what time?
It's like in the Archaic. That's when we start seeing differences really regionally between types.
Well, like Paleo-Indian is pretty regionally distinct too, but they're all Paleo-Indian lancelet points pretty much. I mean,
but what I mean is like there's Clovis points from Maine to Mexico, same with Folsom, and then we kind of start
after Clovis it starts to become a little more regionalized. Yeah, but I see what you're saying. Yes, like true distinct, like what am I looking at? This is definitely from early Archaic Tennessee versus late Archaic Nevada. Very different. Yeah.
And then like in the Great Plains, there's a lot of diversity. And then really from like the 11 to 1600s, you get plain side notch points from Alberta down to southern Texas. It's like, that's it. I guess that's like, we hit it. That is the function. And like Lakotas, Pawnees, Wichitas, Tonkawas to Crees, like everyone was using the same thing because it's just a little arrowhead, and they are arrowheads at this point, and they're side notched. Boom. We did it.
We did it.
We did it. We got to the form that works the best. Is side notching easier than corner notching?
Yeah, I would say so. Or at least I just haven't tried side notching, or it's corner notching. But the fact that I'd never like tried it, I guess just always led me to think side notching was easier in my hands. Or I'm just used to seeing side notched. I don't know why.
I really wish I was a better napper when it comes to stone tools. I'm a hell of a sleever.
Donnie, I know you're listening, so just shoot me a text when you hear this and you're like, here's an answer. You're not Southern. I don't know why I gave you a Southern accent there, but either way, what's up, dog?
Can you make a hand axe? Yeah, I can make a hand axe.
I had somewhere to go with this.
I have no idea.
Oh, the bow and arrow. Like the bow and arrow. I was thinking this the other day too, like, because I've been reading a lot about like age of exploration and stuff. Like when the Spanish guy, they had like pikes and like blunt, like blunder, but like their guns weren't like super the way we would think they are now. Obviously they had muskets and stuff, but
I think they had arquebusts.
Arquebusts? I remember that from, was that
it's the
Assassin's
one with,
Creed 3?
Yeah, they're like super inaccurate, and they're the ones that have like the rope for the fuse.
Oh, I remember those. Yes.
They're old school. No, it's not a flintlock. It's an arquebus.
Oh.
Flintlocks have the flint. The arquebusts have the burning rope from like Pocahontas.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Those things. I know they had that in like the Reconquista in Spain, but yeah, it's 1492. They brought the same stuff over. Point being, I don't think they were using bows at that point. They were using crossbows in some ways, but my segue with this was bows are probably 70,000 years old, if not a little 50,000, 10,000 years old. But like, point being, a technology that was used for a very long time, and like up until like when the Spanish got here, they would have been like, oh, these are bows and arrows. It wasn't like a foreign primitive technology like an atlatl is, you know. But still, it's like that's something that's been perfected. You spring something and launch it a direction, and like a catapult works the same way. I think of something every day that works with a spring. I mean,
but there is difference in some of the styles, like, and we've been trying to figure this out because like the Pawnee used gull wing bows, which look like a bow that's backwards. So rather than like a recurve where the bend in the bow is facing towards the archer, that's facing the opposite direction. Now, what does that do? It does make it like easier to draw the bow. I think, Donnie, yell at me if I'm wrong, but there's only so far you can bend it. Like it has a maximum bend, whereas like a recurve, you can keep pulling on that puppy. We think it's just kind of like you can pull it back, and once you really hit that resistance, you know it's time to let go. Like you've hit its maximum draw. Like it's a much easier indicator. But that's very particular to the Pawnee, and other people were using different styles of bow. Like the Comanches, especially on horseback, the Comanche war bow, really tiny. It's really zippy when you fire it. Like it's a small bow when you fire, but that arrow it's gone.
Like a Mongolian bow, yeah.
Well, Mongolian bows are like have you like seen? I know you've seen them. Those things are massive. Tiny. No, the Mongolian war bows. Those things are massive.
The horse archer bows are like way smaller than I thought they'd be.
No, but the Mongolian ones, like once those were strung up, they were not unstrung for years. Like they had a special person. Like the draw weight on a Mongolian bow is fucking crazy. Like you in under the Khans, a bow maker would be put to death if his bow broke.
I mean, I would ask if that was real, but like a lot of the shit he said I was like, is that real?
I've seen some at DMS. They're gorgeous, and they actually are very pretty. Like not only are they functionally like imagine that, like modern day bows, you unstring them after you were done with them. They kept their strung for fucking years, and they didn't lose tension. And they pierced armor.
Yeah, and I was thinking it's because they're not long like a longbow, but they're smaller, but they have curves in them, which give it the power. Yeah. I guess that's what I was trying to.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, they're a short bow, not a small bow. Mongolian war bow,
but they're not like Legend of Zelda, tiny little. I believe it's the fairy bow or the.
Holy shit! Yeah, so that's an English longbow. The Mongolian bow had a draw weight up to 150 pounds.
I typed in Mongolian bowl. Now I'm hungry.
Is crazy.
Like that, their curve.
150 pound draw weight. That's a fucking lot. To kill an elk, you need like anywhere between above 50. 35. Like you need basically 40 to 50. 150 pounds. You are basically doing a fucking a lat pull of 150 with one arm. Like that's a lot of weight. Just
in
to
that
fire
little thing
once.
Too. Yeah. Well, we've discussed style versus function today, Carlton.
We have, David. I think this was beneficial to our audience.
I think so too. Connor's broken, as am I. As I'm trying to get this pen cap back in.
I too am broken.
We're a mess. Carlton's broken physically and spiritually. So we're
barely keeping it together. What happened to his back this time? Is it from the car wreck on the highway of death from a couple years ago?
That didn't help it, but he hurt his back, I believe, working out a few years ago, and he had to get surgery for it. And like now he has re-hurt the same thing. And the moral of the story is like Connor wakes up at 5 a.m. every day to work out, and he's a very fit person, but like can happen in an interview.
I need to get back into, like, I was going 5-6 times a week. Now I've shrunk back to 3 days a week. I'm just not having a good time sleeping. Like, I'm starting to see the veins in my shoulders now, which I was very proud about. They were starting to pop.
Good. Way to be vascular.
I'm trying. It's like
the diet's gone out the window.
I got beefy arms. I feel like Robert Baratheon. God bless Bessie and her tits.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay.
God, I love Robert Baratheon.
Me too. I wasn't gonna quote that on our podcast.
Who gives a shit? We've said much first. It's a quote.
Quoting Robert Baratheon.
Yeah, it's a quote.
What's the better Bessie? That's what he says. The Dothraki. Anyway, guys, we're keeping it together. I don't know if I've updated you guys. The doctors have no idea what is wrong with me. They're just like, your hands will work when they might not. You're good.
Yeah, and it turns out I don't have ADHD. I have severe anxiety.
Well,
yeah, they misdiagnosed it first. And like, no one told me in my family, like, does your family have a history of anxiety? And I was like, I don't think so. But then I like go back home and I went telling people what happened. They're like, oh, everyone on your dad's side of the family, like your dad suffered from panic attacks. We're all in anxiety meds. I'm like, wait a minute. And I wonder if that's historic or generational trauma, because it's only the Indians that have it.
Leading research on anxiety is that in ADHD, you can have genetic predispositions to it, but it's extra, what do you call it? Epigenetic, like factors that cause it. Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
So like, yeah. Environmental factors. There you go. Like things like that can like trigger it in you. Yeah.
Yeah. Anxious people hoping to get on medication because fuck does this shit suck.
This episode took a
the dark turn.
This got bad. We're here. We're getting your content. Carlton's recording his own episode here in a minute. Last week, when you're hearing this, you will have heard me talk to Vinny.
Bag of donuts.
Air duster in my water. That's great.
Can I start eating wings? Can we play Sea of Thieves and eat wings? Follow, rate, review the podcast.
Please keep listening to us. Don't leave after this nonsense.
If you want to be a host on the podcast, please let us know. We need help.
The other context is Carlton just drove across the country and back the other day, and he's like trying to be a functional person. I haven't had a thought since November. So.
It was bliss. 9.5 hours of not getting assaulted by emails. I wish I could drive all the time. I'll drive your bus, David. I'll drive you wherever you want. Just keep the phone away from me.
All right. Let's
I'll be a bus person. I'll change my idea from a C person to a bus person.
See, live and die by the bus, D.
Live and die by the bus. All right, till next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to A Life in Ruins podcast.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Life in Ruins Podcast, and you can also email us at alifeinruinspodcast@gmail.com.
And remember, make sure to bring your archaeologists in from the cold and feed them beer.
This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Culturo Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Chris Webster.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.